Good morning, everybody. It's a little bit hot today, and the school hasn't turned on our lunchiji yet, so it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable today, especially for me, because I'm Beiburan, right? I'm just not used to this, even though I've been living here for 8 years. So we'll try to get through this together. Today, we are going to talk about color, which is our topic for the day. But first, I want to go back to, which is this screenshot from Crisis 3, 2013. Last week we talked about light. Okay, so light was our topic. And we were talking about how video games are pretty much just like a work of art. As you can see here, we can think about this as a canvas, like a painting, a digital painting, and we can use these vocabulary words that we've been learning to talk about video games, as well as music videos, paintings, sculpture, whatever else. So last week I asked you to write a response to this screenshot and tell me maybe about how light is used in this screenshot. 2 of you did that, which is better than 0, but I'm hoping we can get the number of posts on Tumblr up, right? Just a reminder. But if I were to write a response on this particular screenshot, and I was thinking about writing about light, I would think to myself, where is the source of light? Where is the source of light? Obviously, it looks like the light is coming from up here, kind of coming down this way. So one way to start describing this work of art is to say, the source of light is the sun, and the sun is off the canvas in the upper right-hand corner. Or I could say off the upper right-hand corner of the canvas is the light source. And the light comes down into the lower left-hand side of the canvas, right? So remember, when you're writing about art, you can just think about using, left, right, up, down, back, foreground, background. So you can use these directional terms to talk about art. The light is coming down from the upper right to the lower left, and it's casting a pretty big shadow. So if I say cast a shadow, C-A-S-T, that's a verb, cast. Cast can mean kind of like throw. Okay, so throw a shadow. All of this is cast in shadow. This big triangle over here is cast in shadow. And all of this is also cast in shadow. So there's a kind of narrow little part of light up. We could say a parallelogram, right? You can use the mathematical term or geometrical term, a parallelogram of light. Here, in the middle of this work of art, in the middle of this screenshot. Around this parallelogram of light, you can see a lot of old buildings that are falling apart. And last time, 2 weeks ago, we talked about how this is a kind of post-apocalyptic screenshot or game. Post means after, apocalypse means end of the world. So this takes place after the end of the world. Maybe there was a big war, we don't really know what happened. But all of the human apartments are ruined and empty. Same thing with these cars, right? You see the taxis that are cast in shadow and the other cars cast in shadow. So what do you think light is doing in this screenshot? Maybe you could say something like, well, if something is in light, maybe light symbolizes hope, right? Hope. Maybe if it's dark, that suggests hopelessness, no hope. Things are over. You know, it's sad, it's dark. So human life is very dark in this screenshot. There's not a lot of hope. Everything is empty, everything is destroyed. The cars are broken and no one's using them. But this screenshot also kind of has some hope because of the sunshine coming down. And this tree that's growing up in the middle of what used to be a street. This used to be a street, and now there's this big tree growing in the middle of it. So things are still growing. There's still hope. The hope is in nature, not with humans. So after humans are gone, nature will go on, right? And maybe that's suggested by the light coming down, which means hope. Okay? Again, only 2 of you actually wrote anything about this. If you want, you can still post on Tumblr. You know, remember, that's, you know, I'm sorry to keep telling you this, but it's 20 to 30% of your grade. So later in class, I'm just gonna kind of ask you to tell me anonymously why you are not writing on Tumblr. So I'm interested to find out. Let's talk a little bit about what's happening in the next couple of weeks. As you know, this is week 8. We're already almost halfway through the semester, which is kind of surprising. I feel like we just started. But next week is midterm week. You do have a midterm in this class. We're not going to meet next week. You don't have to come to class next week. The only thing you need to do is upload to Tumblr your midterm video, right? So for the midterm, you need to upload a video to Tumblr sometime before class starts next week. So before Monday, April 17th at 10:20 a.m. sometime, upload to Tumblr your video, right? The video is worth 20% of your grade. I think it's going to be hard for you to pass this class, if you're interested in passing this class, without doing the midterm. There's no makeups. You need to do it sometime this week, right? It's very easy and simple. It's not hard. All you need to do is take your smartphone or use a friend's smartphone and have them film you, or just put it on the table and film yourself. And basically all you need to do is talk about a work of art. Maybe you can even do it outside. If you see, you know, a sculpture out on Suda campus, if you want to talk about a sculpture or a painting that you see here at the university, just have your friend hold the camera, talk about the work of art, right? For 5 minutes. 5 minutes. So you kind of need to think a little bit about what you're going to say. My advice is you can say exactly what I've been asking you to do when I ask you to write a response. So summarize, right? Which means describe. Summarize or describe the work of art. Tell me about it in a lot of detail. Use a lot of vivid detail to describe the work of art. You can go on and on like this for quite a while. You know, I could spend I could spend like 10 minutes describing all of the details from this screenshot. You know, you can go into a lot of very specific detail, talking about the grass, the bushes, whatever this white thing is here in the middle. It's a little bit unclear what it is. I don't even know. The cars, this fence, the tree in the middle, the colors, the light, the use of perspective that we talked about, proportion. I mean, you know, use the vocabulary we've been talking about for 8 weeks. Describe in a lot of detail. Second, you can also kind of interpret the work of art, which means what I did when I was talking about this screenshot. I think this screenshot shows some hope for nature continuing on after humans are gone, right? After a big war with humans, nature will go on. Nature doesn't need us, okay? That's what I think maybe this screenshot is suggesting through its use of light, okay? Or I could just talk about how does it make me feel? What kinds of emotions does it make me feel, right? What do I think about it? Do I like it? Why do I like it? Do I not like it? Why don't I like it? Okay. So you can talk about meaning, your personal response, you know, what you think of it, your emotional response. Any of those things are good to talk about for the midterm. Okay? So this is from the syllabus. You can also take a look at the syllabus, which is on Moodle, if you have any questions about this. 5-minute video, upload it to Tumblr. It's very easy to upload to Tumblr. Later, maybe I want to find out if you're having any trouble with Tumblr. Maybe that's why nobody's using it. But if you're having trouble with Tumblr, you need to come talk to me or talk to Grace. We can help you. It's very easy. You just go to your main page and you'll see like a little video thing. And you just click on the video and it says upload video. I mean, it's super easy. You don't need to think about it at all, okay? Again, you don't need to use anything special. You don't need to use a video camera like we're using today. Just use your smartphone. You need to express a personal interaction with art, a video that shows, describes, and interprets a work of art that you really like. So you can creatively express yourself. Remember, in this class, art is a very big term, okay? If you like music, play a little bit of a song that you can play on the guitar or the piano or whatever, and then tell us about it, right? Or a painting, or a video game, right? A sculpture, music video, okay? In other words, like, it doesn't have to be a painting if you don't want it to be. You know, just you should think about what are you interested in and what do you like. Okay, I want this to actually be kind of fun and interesting for you. Okay? So any questions about the midterm? This is pretty important because it's 20% of your grade. Does anyone have any questions? You sure? All right. Good luck. Remember, we don't meet next week, but you need to upload this before class next week, and I'm going to be looking at it on Tumblr. Okay? All right. So next week, you're going to be uploading your midterm. On week 10, we're going to have a special guest lecture by Huang Yaoyi Lao Si. I'm probably saying her name incorrectly, but my apologies. She's a master's student here at Shida. She will discuss two things. The first part of class, she's going to be talking about painting. The second part of class, she's going to be talking about what she's doing research on. And she's doing research on architecture in Taipei, especially churches, so church architecture in the second half of class. And she's also going to open up her talk to questions. Okay, so I know you guys don't ask me a lot of questions, which is okay, but since she's a guest and we're kind of inviting her here, I hope while she's talking, you kind of think and maybe write down a question that you can ask her, because I think that will be very welcoming for her and she will appreciate it. You know, if no one asks any questions, she might feel a little bit like, you know, what's going on? Did they hate me or something? So just remember, on week 10, come, listen, be prepared to ask some questions, okay? You also need to write a response to the lecture, which is due on week 11. So on week 10, you'll come, listen to the lecture, and then on week 11, you'll bring me your response, which you can write, okay? Basically, in the response, you should summarize the lecture and kind of explain what you learned from it, okay? That's worth 10% of your grade. So obviously, you can't write the response if you're not here. So you need to come on week 10 to listen to the lecture. And if you're not here, you know, maybe something happens and you can't make it, you need to come to me and I will give you an alternate assignment, okay? But it'll probably be harder and you know, not as much fun as just coming to a lecture and writing a response. So please try to come week 10, okay? Ask questions, write a response. All right? Any questions? All right. For those of you who came in late, midterm next week. You need to do it. You have any questions, come ask me. This week, okay, we are going to talk about color. Okay, the topic of the week is color, and I'm putting the vocabulary words up on the screen today. And we'll go through those first before we read from the book. So these are the art-related vocabulary terms that you should know. Remember, you're going to be tested on these vocabulary terms at the end of the semester, right? Washout is a noun, the fading of color due to bright light. So as you know, maybe you've been to a play in the theater, and if someone is standing on the stage and they have a really bright light, the spotlight pointed at them, it kind of makes them look all white, right? I mean, the brightness of the light kind of erases the color, okay? So that's what they mean by washout. The colors are a little bit faded, okay, or washed out. Complementary colors. Complement means go together, right? Go together. So complementary colors are colors that go together, right? Your book gives you 3 examples. One example would be blue and orange. Blue and orange. Those colors, they go well together and they kind of make each color a little bit more powerful by being placed together. Okay, so complementary colors are colors that work well together to make each color more strong and powerful. Neutral colors, on the other hand, are, you might think of this as, kind of boring colors, or plain, neutral. They don't really do anything. Like this wall, okay? These walls are neutral colors. They're not exciting, they're not bright, they're just plain. Like gray, okay? Something that's not very vivid or powerful. Primary colors are basic colors that can be combined to create all other colors. So primary means basic or first. Basic, first, primary. So primary colors, usually people think of the primary colors as 3 colors, okay, red, yellow, and blue. You can take those 3 colors and mix them together to create all other colors. Okay, so yellow and blue mixed together is green. Right? That's where green comes from. So primary just means basic, and a lot of paintings use these primary colors to either by themselves or mixed together, okay, to create other colors. Outline, here we're using this term as a verb. So if you outline something, you kind of just draw a line around the edge of it, okay? Your book uses the example of the painting on the right-hand side of your page. Okay, he draws a black line around the shapes, right? So that means outline, okay? Draw a line around the outside. Abstract, this is a really important term, okay? I think I mentioned it at the beginning of the semester. Abstract, which is the opposite of realistic. So abstract and realistic, those two terms, they're kind of opposites, and they're really, really useful for thinking about painting and the development of painting, okay? I'm going to be talking today quite a bit about the difference between realistic painting and abstract painting, and we'll see how that develops in history, okay, back in the 19th century, in the 1800s. But basically, abstract is simplified and not realistic. It relies on color, line, and shape. The Mondrian painting in your book in that chapter in color, the Mondrian painting on the right, that's a very abstract painting, right? It's just lines and shapes and colors. It doesn't look very realistic. So, you see this a lot when you go into a modern art museum. You walk into the museum and you see a big painting with like a red circle in the middle and everything else is blue, okay? And you think to yourself, I could do that. Why am I not famous and rich? Well, you didn't do it first. That's the sad truth, okay? But yes, those are very probably maybe easier to do than a very realistic painting that looks like a photograph, okay? But those types of paintings do different things. Abstract paintings tend to make you feel emotions, okay, a lot more than a realistic painting. So realistic is a painting that closely represents reality. In other words, it's like a photograph. If I do a painting that looks just like reality, looks just like what I see, that's a very realistic painting. Okay, so again, on the one hand you have abstract, and on the other you have realistic, and there's a lot of things in the middle, okay? It could be a little bit more realistic, a little bit more abstract. Today, I'm going to talk about the development of painting in the 1800s, which basically moved from realistic to a little bit more abstract, a little bit more abstract, a little bit more abstract, a little bit more abstract. So in the middle of the 1800s, painting was very realistic. Why? Because what was invented in the middle of the 1800s? Does anyone, I mean, lots of things were invented in the middle of the 1800s. But can anyone think of anything that was invented in the middle of the 1800s that might have played a role in the development of realism? The answer is cameras, right? Cameras. Cameras were invented in the middle of the 1800s, right? About 160, 170 years ago. Cameras first started being developed. So people could use this new technology and capture reality. So painters also tried to represent reality, and they used photographs to help them paint things very realistically, right? But later, by about World War I, okay, early 1900s, most paintings, a lot of paintings were much more abstract. Okay, we'll see, I'll give you some examples of this. So again, if you only remember two terms today, abstract, realistic, those are the most important. Pattern is an ordered position of shapes. So a pattern has to have some order to it. Okay, some kind of positioning of shapes that has an order. The Mondrian painting in your book on the right-hand side of your page has a pattern to it, right? It's a bunch of squares, repeated. Limited palette. You remember this word from the beginning of the semester, right? I think it's from the very first chapter. Palette is that wooden board that you put the paint on as you're painting, right? But it also can refer to the colors that an artist uses on the canvas. So I could say Van Gogh, the painter Van Gogh, has a very bright palette because he uses a lot of bright colors, right? Limited means only a small number of things, right? Small number. So if an artist uses a limited palette, that means they don't use a lot of colors. Okay. The extreme limit of that is monochromatic. Mono means one. Chrome means color. So if a painting is monochromatic, it only uses one color. Okay. An extremely limited palette. Mixed, of course, means blended together. A lot of times colors are blended together or mixed on the canvas. Okay. So those are your vocabulary words for this week for color. Okay. And now I want to read through our chapter from the book. All right. You may notice that this painting is much brighter than the one in your book and much more colorful than the one in your book, right? I think, I'm not sure which one is more accurate, but I think this one might be a little bit more accurate. So this painting is actually quite vivid and colorful and bright compared to the picture in your book. So this is by Degas, Edgar Degas. And you remember that we talked about Degas a couple of chapters ago when we looked at his ballerinas inside the house, right? Inside the building, when we were talking about proportion. Okay. Degas painted this in 1877. Degas was French. That kind of, gives you the hint that he was probably an impressionist, right? Remember, late 1800s. You can tell he uses very soft brush strokes on the painting. It's a little bit blurry. It's a little bit impressionistic. So, you might be able to identify it just based on the year in which it was painted. So Degas' dancer bowing with a bouquet shows the washout effect of stage lights on the color of the dancer's face and dress. So last week we talked about light, right? And if I asked you, where is the light coming from? One of the places where the light is coming from is down here, right? It looks like there's a spotlight somewhere down here, pointed up at the ballerina, and it's shining right on her face. And I can tell that because her nose is very bright, but there's some shadow here under her eyes and on the top of her nose, which kind of logically means that light is coming up from below and shining on her face from below, casting shadows here above her nose. That light from the spotlight creates a washout effect where she's very white, right? Even the colors of her, the colors of her upper chest, neck, face, it's quite white. And even the colors of her dress are a little bit washed out compared to these brighter colors of the other ballerinas, right? Her dress is kind of yellow, right? I would say yellow. The other ballerinas are kind of more orange, in my opinion. At the rear of the stage, we can see two orange umbrellas against a blue backdrop. So here, these big umbrellas in the background, and they are against the backdrop, which is this. If you guys have ever been part of a drama or a play, maybe you've created a backdrop or painted a backdrop that, it's just on a flat board and you put it at the back of the stage. Okay. Blue is a good color for the backdrop because blue and green are considered cool colors and seem farther away, whereas orange and yellow are warm colors and seem closer. This is a really good, these adjectives that they're using are actually really useful when you want to describe a work of art. Okay, using heat words related to temperature to describe a painting. This backdrop looks quite cool. I'm losing a lot of you today because it's so hot in here. Hanman, right? It's very mun and it's very hot. Okay. So when we look at this painting, we want to jump into the backdrop where it's nice and cool and blue. Blue and green are cool colors. So emotionally, even emotionally, they're kind of cool, right? They're not very intense. But if I take a look at these umbrellas, they're hot, right? They're hot. They seem closer, they're more intense. So orange, red, right? Yellow, bright, hot, or warm compared to cool. So remember, you can use these temperature words, okay, when you're describing a work of art. Orange and blue have a special effect when put together. They are complementary colors. So you see the orange of the umbrella and the blue of the backdrop. Those are complementary colors, as we talked about earlier. They work really well together. So, you know, next time you're thinking about what to wear to class, you can wear a blue shirt and some orange pants, and you'll be very stylish. Okay, because you're going to be wearing complementary colors. Okay. When we see these two colors side by side, they seem brighter and more alive. We can say that they vibrate. Okay, vibrate. They become more intense and powerful. Okay, when put together. The neutral color of the stage floor contrasts with the vibrant orange and blue. So this painting kind of needs a little bit of neutral color or empty space, because otherwise it would be like a rainbow. It'd be kind of unrealistic, right? It would be a little bit unrealistic to have everything really bright and colorful. So most of the painting, actually, a lot of the painting, maybe half or more than half, is neutral. This neutral gray, beige, tan color. Okay. By using this neutral color, it kind of sets these bright parts off. It makes them stronger, actually. If everything was bright, you know, it wouldn't be as bright as if you had a little bit of not bright, right? So the not bright kind of brings the brightness a little bit more alive. Okay, Mondrian, we're going to the next painting. Mondrian was only interested in showing the relationship of color and line in an abstract way. So obviously, this painting is very abstract, right? It's not realistic at all. In composition, he uses only the primary colors, red, blue, and yellow. He places the colors in blocks on a white canvas, then outlines them with black lines. Mondrian wanted the pattern in his paintings to show the underlying order of the universe. Okay, what does that mean? That's a very big claim. The painter said, hey guys, this painting I just made, it shows you what the universe is like. The universe, you know, like our planet, our solar system, our galaxy, the entire universe. Really? What do you think? I mean, why does he think that that shows the underlying order of the universe? You might have to think about it a little bit. But maybe some of the things that we could say about this painting have to do with color. We can use color to interpret what Mondrian thinks the universe is like. Why? Well, most of the universe is white. White kind of suggests emptiness, right? Emptiness. And if you think about it, the universe is mostly emptiness. You know, it's mostly just empty space. We're just very lucky to be in this tiny little planet, this beautiful planet, where there's a matter. But most of the universe is totally empty, like this whiteness. But there are some really beautiful, bright places in the universe, like the planet Earth, or like this wonderful classroom where we can come together every week and talk about beautiful works of art together, right? Blue, red, yellow. There's some splashes of color and life in the universe, which is mostly emptiness. Also, this painting suggests that there is some order to the universe. The universe is not just chaos where anything happens, because there's straight lines, you know. He uses a lot of straight lines, perpendicular lines, 90-degree angles, which suggests there is some kind of logic, pattern, or order to the universe. It's not just random and crazy and chaotic. Okay. But I can go on even further and see how this very simple painting, you can actually say quite a bit about it. It's not perfectly ordered. This painting is not perfect. It's not exactly the same. Every single square is not exactly the same, right? Like this is bigger than this part over here. This color over here is very small compared to this one. It's not, you know, it's not evenly marked out like a tic-tac-toe board or a hashtag on Facebook or Twitter. So what does that mean? That suggests that the universe is not perfect. It has a lot of difference, right? Everything's not the same in the universe. There's red things, there's blue things, there's big things, there's small things. Surrounded by emptiness. That's the universe. Okay. Maybe that's what this painting means. Maybe not. That's just my interpretation. Back to the book. Page 62. Okay, Bodyguard is a painting with a very limited palette, not a lot of colors. In fact, it is almost a monochromatic painting, almost, but you know, really not quite. I mean, look, it's got yellow, green, blue, purple. Here's more green, the yellow of the background, bright blue, red, blue, white, bronze. It's got lots of different colors. Although overall, it's dominated by two colors, right? Green, yellow. Mono means one, and chrome means color. So we use this word to describe a painting which uses one color family. All the colors in this painting contain green, except for a small bit of red on the arrows in the hat. Here's the red on the hat. And the white of the bow. Okay, the bow has a white string. Did you know that black and brown contain green? So again, all colors are kind of mixed from others, from the primary colors. This Asian painting, okay, Asian is kind of a big word. This is actually a Chinese painting. It's from the late 1700s. It's realistic, but it's different from realistic European or American painting at the same time. Why? Take a look at that painting, this painting in your book, which is a realistic painting, and then compare it to this realistic painting by the French European artist. Jean-François Millet, okay, The Gleaners from 1857. This is a little bit later than this painting. But what's the difference? Your book is asking you. What is the big difference between this painting and this painting? I want to go through the vocabulary like we usually do on page 66. By now you should know these words very well. Page 66, number 1, washout means fade. 2, complementary colors means, well, an example of complementary colors is orange and blue, right? A neutral color is gray. Abstract is both simplified and not realistic, so C is the best answer. Primary colors are blue, yellow, and red. To outline something means to define the edge of a form with a line. Pattern means the position of shapes. A limited palette means using a few colors. Monochromatic means one color. Realistic means like real. And 11, mixed, means blended. Now, I'm just going to give you 5 minutes to try to go through 1 through 11 on page 68 and fill in those blanks using the correct vocabulary words. All right, looks like a lot of you are done. If you're not, that's okay too. Go through the answers together. Degas' painting contains a pair of complementary colors, namely blue and orange. When the light is too bright, you will see the washout effect. A pattern is a repetition of shapes. White is usually considered to be a neutral color. And again, as you can see, this classroom is made up of all neutral colors except for this one bright area over here in the corners. But other than that, it's gray, white, dark blue, brown. One thing you might ask yourself, since architecture is also a work of art, why is this classroom full of neutral colors? Why do you think the university did not make this bright blue and red and yellow? Is there a reason? Why isn't it more artistic? If a painting is monochromatic, the artist used a limited palette, a very limited palette, actually, because you're only using one color. Mondrian outlines his blocks with black lines. Red, blue, and yellow are the primary colors. The painting of the bodyguard is realistic. At least the face looks like a real person. And this is how you can answer that question that we ended the first part of class with. Why is this painting different from this painting? This face is very realistic, right? You know, this is also very realistic. I mean, the way these people look, it looks quite realistic. What's the difference? Well, the difference, one of the main differences that I notice is this has no background, right? No background. Where's the background? It's just gold, a golden background, that's it. This one has a very realistic landscape background, okay? Using perspective to show depth Okay. So that to me is the main difference between those two paintings. 9, when red and blue are mixed, we get purple. Mondrian's painting is abstract, and a painting that only uses various shades of one color is called monochromatic. Yeah. So we're now done with the book. So now I want to take you through a kind of really quick history of some painting, European painting, from the middle of the 1800s to the early 1900s, and talk a little bit about color and abstract versus realistic. The first painting I want to take a look at is this one. Okay, we took a look at it before break. The Gleaners, okay, which basically means these people are out in a farm field picking something, right? They're picking grain, collecting grain outside in a field. This was painted in 1857, and it's an example of realism in painting. Realism. So this is a very realistic painting. Remember, this was right around the same time when cameras first started appearing. Okay, the technology of the camera was invented. This kind of looks like something that you would take with a camera. It's not totally perfect or exactly the same as the real world, but it's very close. It's not very abstract at all. It's also very realistic because it shows real, everyday, ordinary people working, which is one of the characteristics of realism. Just before realism was Romanticism, which you may have read if you took any literature classes, one should. Okay. What were Romantic paintings like? They were full of emotion and maybe some imaginary or magical type subject matter. So maybe you would have paintings of a knight, okay, or a prince, or something magical. That's not very realistic, right? Because things like, you know, not all of us are princes, dragons, we don't really see too many dragons in real life. So those types of subject matter are a little bit unrealistic. But this is very realistic. People out working in a field, right? Also, it's painted very realistically. What about color? You know, if I asked you to write about color in this painting, what would you say? You might say, well, there's a lot of neutral color in that painting, right? I mean, it's not very exciting. It's mostly some dull, or not bright, dull yellow, browns, some dull blue. The blue gives it a kind of cool color, right? So why do you think the painter chose a lot of neutral colors? Maybe he's trying to suggest that working out in the field is a little bit boring, right? It's not exciting. It's not full of bright colors if you're out in the field picking wheat all day long. Okay, maybe it's a little bit boring. So maybe that's why he kind of uses a lot of dull and neutral colors in this painting. But there are a couple of spots of color. The blue, the bright blue of this bandana that the person is wearing, and the red and pink of this person's dress. Okay, the bandana and the sleeve. Okay, so there's two bright primary colors. And what do they suggest? Maybe you could say, well, these people, even though they live a kind of boring life, they are special and important people, right? They're bright. They're bright people, even though they live a kind of boring, difficult life. Maybe. All right. Anything else we notice from this painting? We could say this painting uses proportion, right? Big people. They're a lot bigger than these buildings and trees in the background. So it uses proportion to show distance. It also uses perspective, right? Perspective. You can see they all go back to a vanishing point. A vanishing point maybe right about there in the center of the painting. Okay. Now, after realism comes impressionism. You remember this painting. I've already spent a lot of time talking about impressionism, so I'm not going to spend that much time talking about it. But you can see this is a little bit less realistic than this painting, right? The brush strokes are less exact. They're bigger on this. Bigger brush strokes, a little bit more blurry. There's not any sharp outlines, to use another vocabulary word. There's not a lot of sharp outlines. Everything's kind of blurry, blending together. It's a little bit, bigger brush strokes, less realistic, because here Monet is just giving us his impression, his personal impression of what it was like on that day when he was looking up at his beautiful wife with her parasol and their little boy next to her. He's giving us his impression, right? What about color in this painting? Well, it has a lot of really bright blue, right? Bright blue, much brighter blue than this. It's a gray sky, almost mostly gray here, neutral sky. This is very bright and full of life, even though it's a cool color. There's some spots of yellow here that create a liaison with the yellow at the bottom. Remember, liaison is another one of your vocabulary words. Liaison means to create a connection between two colors on the canvas, right? So we have a liaison here on her sleeve and the yellow down here, the yellow of his hat. We have a little bit of red here on his hat. The inside of her parasol or umbrella is green, which creates another liaison between the green here and the green below, right? So what do the colors of this painting suggest or tell us about the meaning of this painting? Again, I think that this painting uses a lot of really bright, powerful colors, especially the blue and the yellow and the blue. These primary colors, they give you an intense feeling of maybe the love that Monet feels for his wife, because they're very strong and powerful colors. It's not dull, it's intense. It's intense, just like his feelings for her. You feel alive when you look at this painting. Like, this painting makes you want to go outside on this beautiful day and look at the sun come through the leaves of the tree as you look up at them, at the blue sky, right? It makes you want to be alive, I think. That's why I like Impressionism. Towards the end of the 1800s, Impressionism starts to kind of lose its dominant place in terms of, you know, the most maybe important movement in art. And there's some painters who kind of draw on some of the Impressionist techniques, but they kind of move beyond it or do things a little bit differently. And one of the ways that they do it differently is the pointillist style. You can see this is very similar to an Impressionist painting, right? It's similar because it's a little bit blurry. There's no sharp outlines. There's no sharp outlines. It's also not quite as realistic. Oops. It's not quite as realistic as this. It's quite a little bit more abstract. The people almost look like a bunch of shapes kind of put together. Like a circle, a rectangle, right? What is that called? I don't know. I can't think of it. An umbrella shape, right? Umbrella shape. So this almost seems like abstract shapes put together. Okay. It's also very blurry. It also uses primary colors just like Monet, green, blue, very bright, sunny. Seurat is very interested in showing us sunshine, shadow, right? Like Monet. And like Renoir, remember we looked at Renoir who painted that painting of the people dancing in Paris? Here's more Parisians, people who live in Paris, just enjoying themselves outside, right? It seems to be a subject matter of the Impressionists. They like to paint people outside enjoying nature and sunshine, right? But what do you think is a little bit different about this painting? What is different about this painting? And why is it called pointillism, do you think? The answer is, it's made up of a lot of tiny, tiny little points. You know, Seurat, when he was painting this, he took his paintbrush, which had a tiny little point to it, and stuck it in some paint and made one tiny little dot, and then made another tiny little dot, and then got a different color and made another tiny little dot. This probably took him a very long time to paint. He did it point by point. Point, tiny, tiny little point by tiny, tiny little point. It almost looks like a screenshot from a video game, right? Because video games also use tiny little dots called pixels, right? Pixels, tiny little dots. The more tiny little dots you have, the more realistic it looks. The less pixels or dots you have, the less realistic it looks. Okay? So that's why this is called pointillism. What else can we say about this painting? It uses proportion, it uses perspective. A lot of the other terms we've talked about you could use to talk about this painting. Do you like it? I'm going to take that as a yes. I'm interpreting that as a resounding yes. I'm glad. The next painting is by Vincent van Gogh, or actually I think the pronunciation is more like Van Gogh. Okay, but I'm just going to say Van Gogh. Vincent van Gogh, you're probably familiar with his work. He's a very famous painter, right? He's very famous because, you know, he went insane and he cut his ear off, right? He's very famous for doing that. This is probably his last self-portrait. So before selfies, right? You know selfies. Do you guys know selfies? Yeah, okay. Before selfies, self-portraits were the way to go. If you wanted to show people what you looked like, you would paint yourself like Van Gogh does here, right? One of the things I want to look at later, actually, if we have time, is selfies. Selfies are a work of art, a particular genre of art. And you all take part in this work of art because you all probably have Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and you love taking selfies and posting them to other people. How do you take a selfie? Do you think about the position of the phone when you take your selfie? Do you put it down low or do you put it up high? Does it make you look different if it's down low or up high? Do you use filters? Do you use filters to change how sharp your selfie is? Do you make it a little bit more impressionistic and less realistic by blurring the outlines of your face? Right? Maybe once you get to be my age, you will use those filters to get rid of the wrinkles on your face. The wrinkles, you can make it blurry, right? So impressionism can help you look younger. Right? You want to be more abstract. You don't want to be realistic on a selfie. You don't want people to see the way you really are, right? So you're using art to change how we perceive you, right? It's not real. So we can talk about those things later. This is an early form of selfie. Okay. Vincent van Gogh. From 1889, a little bit later, just a few years later than this pointillist work by Seurat. Okay. This type of painting is called post-impressionism. Post means after, right? After, so after Impressionism. What do we notice about this painting compared to the ones that came before? It's getting even more abstract, right? It's getting even more abstract. Does that look like a photograph? Not really, right? Why? Because of this is Van Gogh's, this is why Van Gogh is famous. This is what he's famous for. These swirls of color. Swirls, right? Even on his jacket, you can see it starting to swirl just like the background, right? And if you could see this painting in a museum, you would also see that it has a lot of texture, right? Because he put the paint on very thick. The paint is very thick, so it kind of sticks out a little bit. It has a very deep and rough texture to the painting, right? What about color in this painting? This painting has a very limited palette, right? It only uses maybe two or three different colors. Blue, well, there's blue, there's white, there's kind of yellowish brown, red, the red of his beard, the red of his hair, okay? He still has his ear because he hasn't cut his ear off yet. All right. Why does he use blue? And how could we interpret the colors that are used in this painting? You know that Van Gogh was going insane during this time period. He was going crazy, right? He was probably very depressed. He was probably deeply sad and depressed as he was going crazy. So blue, if blue as a color suggests depression, right? Sadness. If I say, I'm blue, that means I'm sad, right? I'm blue. You're sad, you're depressed. So, I don't know, maybe, I'm just guessing, blue kind of gives us this sad feeling, a sad emotion when we look at this painting. Okay? It's also very cool, right? We said that before. Blue is a cool color. Red is a bright, hot color. So what does that tell us? It tells us that Van Gogh is a very hot, intense individual. He's hot, full of energy. He's intense. You know, imagine what he was feeling in his mind when he cut off his ear. He had to have a lot of inner mental energy. He was full of intensity, right? He was burning on the inside. So when you take a look at this portrait, even though he's standing still, he's full of energy and intensity, and part of that's because of the red of his beard and his hair, right? What else can we say about this painting? Van Gogh said that his eyes, you know, if you take a look at his eyes on that painting, he said that his eyes look a little bit unstable, a little bit off, right? His eyes are very intense, right? Intense, full of energy. Like he's full of energy and intensity, his eyes. Also, what do you think about the background? The blue background with all these swirls of color. Those swirls also suggest energy, right? Energy. As if he's, what I think of when I take a look at this painting is, he is like a pot of water that's coming to a boil, and the steam is rising from him and swirling around, right? So he's full of heat and emotion, and it's swirling around outside of him, and it's even starting to show up on himself. You see the swirls of his coat jacket, right? So even though he looks very calm, the way that this is painted suggests that inside he's full of energy, turmoil, right? Powerful emotions. Okay. Okay, the next big movement in art is called Expressionism. Okay, it's, as you may notice, it looks kind of a lot like Impressionism, but it's Expressionism. So Impressionism means my impression of something that I see, right? To express something means to give you something from inside of me, right? To share a powerful emotion, my powerful emotion, and express it. If I express an emotion to you, it might not be very realistic, right? It's going to be very intense, full of bright colors and powerful shapes. So it's going to be a little bit more abstract. Emotions are very abstract things, right? Anger, fear, boredom, sleepiness. These are all abstract. You can't draw a picture of them. You can't take a photograph of them. Okay, they are abstract. So how do we paint them? What if I wanted to make a painting of anger? What if I wanted to make a painting of violence, right? Anger or violence or destruction, feelings that I have inside. I can't take a photograph of it. What's another way that I can express it? I can express it using vivid, bright colors, okay? Powerful shapes and lines, like Mark does in this painting called The Fate of the Animals in 1913. Okay. You could also say this is a kind of early version of Expressionism. Because again, this painting, although it's realistic, it shows a human being, it shows a face, so it's realistic. It also shares some kind of powerful emotions, right? Like we were saying. But this one is much less realistic. It's very, very abstract. It's starting to get very, very abstract. And eventually, you'll get to this. Okay. What's the date on this? I think it's maybe 1918 or something. Well, 1929. So 1929, this is 1929. After Mark's Expressionist painting. So you can see, right, we've moved from very realistic in the middle of the 1800s to less realistic, less realistic, less realistic, more abstract, until you get to total abstraction in the early 1900s, right? But this one is a little bit more realistic than the Mondrian painting in your book. Why? Why is it more realistic? Because you can still see some realistic things that are actually exist in the real world in this painting. For example, this animal, this blue animal, that's an animal, right? There are also some animals over here. They might be maybe pigs, right? Pigs. This might be a deer. Okay, a deer. 是什么? It's a green horse, right? It looks like a horse. So you have some horses, you have maybe some pigs or warthogs, okay, over here. You have some deer over here. You have also some animals over here. Can you see? You guys never took me up on my offer to have you come sit closer to me. You're still staying as far away from me as possible. But if you're a little bit closer, you might be able to see some more animals over here. This is their nose. Okay, this is their head. They might be foxes. Foxes over here. Right? But aside from these animals, the rest of the painting is very abstract, right? Like, what is this? What is that? Is it flame? Is it someone shooting a gun, an explosion, a bomb? What is it? These shapes over here, what are they? Is that a bullet? A bullet from a gun? Is it a bullet? Is it a missile? Is it a stick? Who knows? Who knows for sure? We don't really know. It's very abstract. What about the color in this painting? If I told you to describe the color of this painting, what would you say? You could say, I'm answering my own questions today. I hope you don't mind. I could say, well, this uses a lot of primary colors. The animals in particular are usually quite bright. You have this very bright blue deer. You have these bright green horses. You have these red pigs, okay, in the corner. So mostly primary colors and very bright colors are used to describe animals. What did we say earlier bright colors suggest? Bright colors suggest life, right? Like, think of Monet's painting when he's looking at the bright blue sky. It makes you feel alive, right? These animals are alive. They're full of life. And you can see even the way that they move, they're full of life. This deer is raising itself up, right? Maybe because it's happy, or maybe it's, making a noise. We don't really know. They're moving, they're full of movement, right? So the animals are alive. But we also have these sharp reds, sharp yellow, and brown. Sharp, hard, jagged. Those are all adjectives I could use to describe those lines. They're zigzag lines, jagged, sharp, powerful, explosive. What do they mean? Well, red suggests fire, and it also suggests blood. Fire and blood. So maybe there's a fire in the forest, and that's why all of these animals are running around, yelling, whatever, right? Because there's a fire in the forest. What are these? These brown shapes. I don't know, to me this almost looks like a bullet. I think that if I had to describe it, that would be a bullet from a gun, right? A bullet from a gun. And it's also much darker over here in this side of the canvas. It uses a lot more neutral color. Neutral color, it's brown. So what does that side of the painting mean? And what do those jagged red lines mean? I think it means humans. Humans are coming. Humans are the neutral color. Humans are the neutral color. They're full of machines, like bullets, saws, a saw that cuts down trees, right? Bullets, flames, destruction. So I could use color to explain what this painting is about. What is the fate of animals? Fate means what's going to happen. What's going to happen to animals? What is going to happen to the beautiful, colorful, full of difference animals in nature? The boring human neutral colors are going to come in and destroy all of the beautiful colors of nature. They're going to burn them down. They're going to cut them down. They're going to destroy them, right? So I think this painting is trying to teach us a lesson, right? Trying to teach us a lesson that humans are destroying nature and animals. How does it do it? It uses color, it uses shape, and it uses abstraction. How do you paint a painting of something like violence? How do you draw a realistic picture of anger or destruction or violence? It might be a little bit difficult. You might have to do it through abstraction, through emotion, right? Like this. This painting is very emotional. It's very powerful. It's very violent, right? And again, it does that through color and shape. Okay. Now, next week, guys, your midterm is due. You need to tell me about a work of art. I am kind of modeling how to talk about a work of art today. Today I modeled for you like how to talk about a work of art. I talked about many works of art today, right? What did I do when I described them? I summarize them, I talk about what's happening in the painting, and I also kind of give my interpretation of what does it mean. So that's kind of what I want to see you do on the midterm when you upload your video to Moodle. A couple of students asked me, does my face need to be on the video? In other words, can I make a video where it's just my voice? The answer is yes, you can make a video that's just your voice. Maybe your work of art is knitting a sweater, and you want to show that's a work of art. I don't know how to do it. Not everybody knows how to do it. If you know how to knit, you are an artist. Show us how you make your work of art. Tell us about it. Right? That's fine. We don't meet next week. Good luck with the midterm. You have any questions, you can ask me or you can ask Grace. We're going to talk about the next chapter in our book, which is movement. Okay. First, I want to go through the vocabulary from the textbook. There's, I think, 11 words or 12 words that you should know. Just to remind you, these words are going to appear on a vocabulary test at the end of the semester. Right. So horizon line is a noun phrase, and that's basically the line where the sky meets the earth, or the sky meets the ocean. Okay, that line is called the horizon or the horizon line. Static is an adjective that means still or unmoving. Okay, static. The noun is okay, the noun version of static is stasis. So if you're referring to stasis as a noun, that means nothing is changing. Everything stays the same. Okay? Arc is a curve or a semicircle. Okay, semicircle or semicircle or a curve. Okay, so do we have any arcs in this room? Are there any arcs anywhere in this room that you can see? On the Shida nameplate on the podium, you can see there are some semicircles or arcs in the center. Okay, maybe there's more. We'd have to search. Image is a noun, basically means a picture of something. So I can have an image in my mind of a tree, or I can have an image in my mind of a rainbow. Okay, a picture or a representation. Space is basically emptiness. Okay, like air, emptiness. Okay, nothing is there. Diagonal usually refers to a line, okay, that it's not vertical and it's not horizontal. It's not horizontal, it's not vertical, but it's angled like a diagonal. Chaotic means messy or disordered. Okay, messy or disordered. Some paintings look very chaotic. Like, what's going on in this painting? I can't even tell. That's a kind of chaotic picture. To distort means to fracture, which means break. Okay, to break up, or to twist out of shape. So if you go to the circus or an amusement park and you know those mirrors that are curved, the curved mirrors, and when you look into them, your face looks funny. So that mirror is distorting your image. Capture means to catch or immobilize. Okay, I can capture an insect, I can capture a bird, or I can capture an image. I can capture an image with a camera. Right? So to catch or immobilize. Mobile means able to move, right? Mobile means able to move. So immobile means not able to move. So trap something, capture it, catch it. Linear means straight, like a line. So you can even see in the word it has line in the word. So linear is basically just taking the noun line and turning it into an adjective. Circular obviously means like a circle or curved, right? Pretty easy vocabulary word. So this is your vocabulary for the week. And again, the reason why we're learning the vocabulary is that so when you write responses, you can use the vocabulary that we learn to talk more effectively about art, right? You can use words like perspective, proportion, light, color, all of those things that we've talked about to speak about anything visual more professionally. Okay. Let's go to your book and read through it together. Okay, we're on page 90, chapter 7. So this chapter is about movement in paintings. 3 young boys with their hats pulled down tight and determination on their faces are leaning against the wind to balance a sailboat on a windy day off the coast of Maine. So you can see they're talking about these 3 boys here, right? They're wearing these hats pulled down tight so they don't blow off in the wind, and they're leaning back against the movement of the boat to kind of balance it out so it doesn't fall over. Okay. They also have determination on their faces. So determination means you really want to get somewhere, or you really want to do something. Okay. Especially this boy here. You can see he looks pretty confident, right? He's looking forward, and he's also looking out toward the horizon. So this boy is kind of a symbol of young America, right? Young America, full of hope, determination, courage, hoping things will get better, even through troubled times, okay? Even in troubled times. The sail is full. This is the sail. So the sail is full, it's catching the wind. The ropes are taut. Okay, you can see this rope, for instance, right here. This rope. They are taut, or all the way out, tight. And the little boat is plowing or pushing through smoothly across the water, tilted at an angle, tilted off to one side. We see the splashing water at the bow. Okay, this is the bow of the ship. This is the bow. This is the stern. Okay, the stern of the ship, or the rear of the ship. This is the bow. You can see the splashing water here. And also here by the rudder. Okay, this is a rudder. I don't know if, oh yeah, that's one of your vocabulary words, rudder, right? This is the rudder. The rudder steers the ship. Without a rudder, you can't steer. You cannot steer. So, all of these details create the sense of motion. So, back when we first started this class, we talked about how do artists create the sense of distance and depth, right? And we talked about perspective, proportion. So now we're talking about how do they create a sense that things are moving in a picture? Because obviously a picture doesn't move. A painting doesn't move. It's still, it's static. It's static. So how do you make something seem to move in a static image? And we're going to talk about different ways to do that today. We can almost feel the power of the wind on our faces in Homer's breezing up. The straight horizon line where the ocean meets the sky helps to balance the painting and reassures us that there is no real danger. So this painting, there looks like it might be a little bit dangerous, right? Like maybe their boat is going to fall over. But you know, there's lots of hints in the painting that suggest that it's not very dangerous. Your book says that, well, there's the horizon line. You can see the horizon line, so that gives you a sense of safety, right? There's also the boy who is looking forward, looking at the horizon. He doesn't seem scared. This boy doesn't seem very scared either. He's just kind of laying there having a good time, right? None of them look very frightened. Also, there's another ship on the horizon line. So even if they did have some trouble, they would have help. They would have some help in the back. You know, one of the things I want you to do in this class is to be able to talk about things in a lot of detail. So if I asked you, what other details in the painting do you see that suggest or symbolize or represent safety? What would you point to? If I said, what else in this painting gives you a sense of safety? Could you point to anything in the painting? Just think about it. Just think about it for a second. Can you guys still hear me? Oh, okay. Well, I'm asking you basically to think about reading this symbolically. And we're not going to talk about symbolism for a few more weeks, but maybe I could say, well, look at the sky. Even though it's mostly cloudy, there's lots of clouds, there's still some blue sky, right? The blue sky symbolizes hope, right? Even though it's cloudy, there's some blue sky that suggests hope. I already mentioned the boy looking towards the horizon. I also pointed out the rudder, right? The rudder. The rudder means that you can steer. So you have some ability to get out of this situation, get out of this dangerous situation. Also, finally, what is this over here? Do you guys know the word? The word for that? Why do I keep losing my chalk? Anchor. You drop it in the water and it keeps you in the same place, right? You can't move because you drop the anchor, it falls all the way down to the bottom, under the water, stays there. So the anchor is a symbol, okay? It represents or symbolizes or means safety, stability, stasis. Your vocabulary word, stasis, right? So even though there's lots of movement and chaos in this painting, there's also, it's balanced. It's balanced by stasis and safety, right? Does that make sense? Here's another painting by the same painter, okay? Winslow Homer. This one is later than the earlier one from 1899. It's called The Gulf Stream. Obviously, you can see it's similar. It's kind of similar to the painting in your book. It shows a boat that's tilted on its side. It has someone leaning back against the boat to keep it from tipping over. But there's lots of differences, obviously, right? This has one person on the boat, a black man, right? He is surrounded by these sharks swimming around in the water. The sharks obviously kind of suggest or symbolize danger, right? You know, like if he falls in the water, he's gonna die. There's other hints or little tiny details in this painting that also suggest lack of safety or danger, especially when you compare it to this painting. If I asked you, okay, just think for a minute, I ask you, tell me why, point to specific details that show that this man is in danger. Why does this painting look more dangerous or chaotic? Why does it look more chaotic or dangerous than the last painting? Just think about it for a second. Why? You may notice this ship has no mast. Okay, no mast. This right here is the broken mast. Okay, see this mast? The mast holds up the sail, right? The mast holds up the sail. Without a mast, you can't control where you're going to go, right? You have no control. So the mast is broken. There's no rudder, right? See the rudder? No rudder. In other words, this man cannot steer, okay? He's also surrounded by all these hungry sharks who want to eat him, okay? There is a ship way back in the distance which does suggest some safety or stasis, but notice how far away it is compared to this one, right? It's way farther away. It's also much cloudier. There's no blue sky, right? And where is the horizon line in this painting compared to this one? Notice this one is 2/3 of the way up on the top, right? This one is 1/3 of the way up. So 1/3 versus 2/3. What's the difference? Why do you think he put the horizon up higher on this one? Maybe because in this painting, it looks like the ocean is, surrounding the whole boat. This one, they're above. They still can see the sky, right? They're kind of above the water. They're not totally surrounded by the water. There's still some sky that's touching the ship. But on this one, the boat is completely surrounded by water, which again kind of suggests it's hopeless for this guy. He's surrounded by the ocean. He's not going to be able to get out. He might die. The sharks might eat him, right? Now, why do you think, another thing you could think about when you're thinking about these paintings is, why would Winslow Homer, an American painter, be painting these two pictures? Where a group of white people is full of hope and determination, and a black man is surrounded by trouble and danger and chaos, right? You know, if you think about American history, obviously you know that African Americans had a much more difficult life than white people, especially in the 19th century, right? Even though slavery ended, you know, in mid-century, late century. But he might be trying to talk about race in the United States. Okay. One more famous painting that also deals with ships and sharks. Okay, this one is by John Singleton Copley, Watson and the Shark, from 1778. So this is much earlier, right? Much over 100 years before. And you can just see, you can kind of see a little bit maybe the influence of Impressionism in the Homer painting, because this one is much less realistic than this one. See how realistically painted these people are? It's not very blurry. This one's much more blurry and impressionistic, right? What else is going on in this one? Do you think, by the way, this guy who's being saved, Watson, he was saved, this actually happened, but he was saved and he later became the mayor of London. So even when you're having a terrible time in your life and dangers are surrounding you, good things can eventually happen. Okay. Copley never saw a shark before, and you can tell because this shark looks kind of weird, right? It has nostrils here. It has lips. You see these lips right here? It's kind of got these weird lips, like sharks don't have lips. So this kind of tells you that Copley had never seen a shark and he's just kind of painting it based on descriptions that he's read. What about movement in this painting? Do you think that this painting, it has more movement or this one? Or these? This one seems much more still and static to me, right? Why? Well, there's all these static buildings in the background, right? They aren't moving, the ships aren't moving. You're very close to shore, it seems quite safe. This boat is level rather than angled, okay? The wave, there's no spray from the wave. There's no white spray from the wave. It just looks kind of solid. And yes, some people are moving, like this guy who's trying to kill the shark, but it definitely doesn't have the same amount of movement that you can feel in this kind of painting by Homer. right? Anyway, obviously Homer was very influenced by this earlier painting. Let's go on in the book, talk about the second painting. In Hokusai's The Great Wave Off Kanagawa, the motion looks more dangerous. So this painting looks way more chaotic and dangerous than the Homer. Sea foam is flying around. Okay, so notice all the white foam, the spray. There's obviously a ton of it in this painting. There's zero or very little, maybe a little bit here in this painting. There's some in this painting, some spray, a lot in this one. But this one's just crazy chaotic. Sea foam is flying around, and a giant wave that fills half the painting is about to break over 3 fishing boats. So you can see in this painting, here's a boat, right? This is a boat with people in it. Here's another boat. You can see some people. Here's another boat over here. This wave is about to come crashing down and destroy these boats, right? There is no horizon line to give us a feeling of stability, feeling stable. But there is a static element in this composition. So when you look at this painting, there's no horizon, right? In other words, like you're just totally lost. Imagine like being out on the ocean with these huge waves and you don't even know where the horizon is. So this painting gives you a sense of disorientation. You don't know where you are. You're confused. You don't feel stable. But there is one static element in this composition. Can you find it? It's the famous Japanese mountain, Mount Fuji. So the mountain looks stable. At least we can see that, a little piece of land. But look how much bigger the wave is than Mount Fuji. Okay, he's obviously using proportion, okay? He's using proportion to show that the wave is much bigger. But this part of the wave even looks like a mountain, right? This looks like a snow-capped mountain like Mount Fuji. But this is obviously like way much bigger than this, proportionately. So does the serene or calm, peaceful Mount Fuji in the background say that all will end well, that everything's going to be okay? Or does Mount Fuji seem powerless next to the awesome onslaught of the giant wave? So you guys probably know the word awesome, right? Like in English we use awesome a lot to say like, man, your painting is awesome. Your hair is awesome today. But awesome, being awestruck means like you're in awe of something, right? You're overwhelmed by something. So awesome also means, or originally means, like something that makes you feel overwhelmed by something. Awesome, amazing. So this wave is awesome. It's awesome. It's an awesome giant wave. This painting might remind you of another painting that we talked about a long time ago. If you turn to page 15 in your book. Remember the gouache early spring painting from much, much earlier? Like, what do you think if I asked you to write me a response comparing and contrasting the Guoxi early spring and the Hokusai great wave, what do you think they're doing that's similar? Just think about it for a second. What is similar, if you remember us talking about that painting? What's similar between the two? And if you have an answer, you can raise your hand and tell me. Remember when we were talking about Guoxi and we said, look how big the mountains are compared to the humans. You can't even see the humans. Like where are the humans in the houses? So we said way back a long time ago, we said that in a lot of ancient Chinese painting, the idea was to show how big and powerful nature is compared to humans. Nature is much bigger, more powerful than us. So then you take a look at Hokusai's painting, and it's kind of very similar, right? Nature, the wave, is huge and powerful. It's way bigger than us. It can destroy us, right? So a kind of similar message. Another interesting thing about this painting is a lot of people have talked about the empty space of this painting. A lot of this painting is just empty. Like this almost, probably like about half of the painting, there's nothing in it at all, right? So why do you think the artist filled up half of the canvas with all of this exciting action, and then the rest of it's just totally empty? Maybe because he's trying to create some balance. And maybe in this painting you can see yin-yang, right? Yin-yang, like two opposite things coming together into one, right? Two opposite things coming into one. You can almost see a little yin-yang symbol here, right? Okay, next painting, or actually no, not next painting. This is another painting by the same artist, Hokusai. Today we've been talking a lot about comparing and contrasting. If I asked you, what is the difference between this painting and this painting? What are the differences? And why do you think, I mean, this is like one of the most famous Asian paintings ever, or just paintings in general. Everybody knows this painting. It's very popular and very famous. Probably not many people know this painting. It's not very famous. So why do you think this painting is more famous? Why do you think it's better or more interesting? What differences are there between this one and this one? Do you think? Just think about it. Think about it for a second, and then I'll tell you what I think. You can also think about the questions that we've been asking with the previous paintings, like which one has more elements of safety or stability? Which one looks more dangerous? The thing is, this one has a lot more safe details. Details that suggest stability or safety or security. Does anyone want to name one? Can anyone name a detail that shows safety? People on the boat?
It looks like slowly. This another picture is here. Want to do something to their boat.
So they're rowing different. They're rowing differently. Yeah. Okay. So this one, the people are much bigger, right? The people are much bigger, and you can see they're using their paddles to row. This one, it's kind of much more difficult because the people are smaller, and just the fact that they're smaller suggests that they have less power, right? Like they're very tiny. They're totally overwhelmed by the power of nature. Whereas this one, they're bigger. You can see they have oars. Maybe they can get out of this and be safe. So yeah, great, thank you. Another thing we could mention, well, you can see land. You know, there's a horizon. See the horizon line. This one, no horizon. You're totally lost. This one, not only is there a horizon, but you can also see some land. You're not that far away. You've also got these guys up here. They're safe, right? They've made it past the big wave, so they're going to be okay. Same with this boat over here. It's only this boat that looks like it might be in danger. Okay. A final difference between these, or maybe one more difference. This wave looks a lot different than this wave. This wave has much more movement. This wave looks like a wall, you know? It looks very solid, like a wall, like it's not moving very much. This one, it's got arcs. It's got arcs showing the movement of the wave much more. And finally, maybe we could point to these birds. What are birds a symbol of? What do birds represent? Birds often represent hope, right? Like, I can fly away. I can get out of this situation if I'm a bird, right? So birds are a symbol in this painting of maybe safety. Okay, continuing with your book. Popova puts circles, arcs, and lines together in an abstract image of forces moving in space, in space force construction. So the first thing you notice when you look at this painting is it's much more abstract and much less realistic than the other paintings that we've looked at. This is probably the most realistic painting that we've seen, right? This one is almost becoming quite abstract. You know, it almost just looks like a couple of shapes, like one arc, a triangle, that's it. But this, obviously, it's very, very abstract. You can't even really tell what it is. Is this a sun or a light or a machine, or you know what, we don't know. So she, Popova, wants to show power. So she uses arcs, which look like rolling waves. So here, once again, we have waves, okay? The arc of a wave showing power or movement. She adds diagonal lines which give a sense of movement because we see them as something going up or coming down. So you have some diagonal lines here, 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 right? Some diagonal lines. Diagonal lines suggest movement. If I told you, use a line to symbolize different things for me, okay? Only one line. And then you draw a vertical line. This is a vertical line. And someone else draws a line like that. Which one of these lines looks like it has more movement? Which one has more movement? Probably this one, right? This one looks static. And this one looks dynamic or moving, right? It's going forward. This one's staying the same. That's why these angled lines in the Popova kind of give you the idea of something moving, right? So we might see her composition as chaotic. Remember, composition is one of those words that you should know. Composition means arrangement. Arrangement. So how does she arrange the painting? She arranges it in a very chaotic way, a very messy way. You know, lines cutting into each other, circles being cut, arcs. It's very broken and fragmented. Okay. This was painted in 1921. Do you think that there's any historical reason why someone would be painting a painting that looks very chaotic and broken? Remember, World War I. World War I ended 3 years before this painting was made, right? So just 3 years ago, there was the worst war that anyone had ever seen before. Millions and millions of people killed, right? So, you know, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, this world is a chaotic, crazy, messy, broken place. So maybe this painting kind of captures some of that, right? Maybe, you know, I'm just guessing. Maybe she's trying to suggest that. Okay, finishing up really quick. Some lines seem to distort the path of the movement. So it kind of seems to be moving this way, but there's some lines that break it up. And there's no resting place for the eye in this composition, no Mount Fuji. So again, this is a very chaotic, dangerous painting. There's no safety. There's no safety. Even this painting has some safety, but Popova's has none. Okay. Okay, if you're not finished yet, it's all right. Let's go through the answers. Number 1, an abstract painting may look like a chaotic composition. So chaotic again means kind of messy. Okay. But it doesn't necessarily have to be chaotic. Remember on page 61. Remember Mondrian's painting Composition. That's a very abstract painting, right? But it's not very chaotic at all. It's actually quite orderly. Remember we talked about how that painting suggests the order of the universe. The universe has order. Okay. So number 1, an abstract painting may look like a chaotic composition. 2, the diagonal lines in Popova's work show linear movement. Okay, so there's some linear movement, like moving in one direction this way, maybe. Some force is moving down in that direction. But if you jump to number 7, number 7 says the arcs in Popova's work show circular movement in space, right? Circular movement in space. So this painting has 2 types of movement. Because it's using diagonal lines, it suggests linear movement from maybe the upper left to the lower right. But it also suggests circular movement, right? Because of the arcs, right? The arcs. So what is this showing? I don't know. Maybe a machine that's spinning around and moving down at the same time, like a drill. Okay, like a drill, maybe. You know, obviously we don't know for sure. 3, we can't see the horizon line in Hokusai's painting. No horizon. Did you know that the image of Mount Fuji appears in many of Hokusai's paintings? So he actually painted a whole series of paintings about Mount Fuji that were very famous. The motion in Hokusai's painting is circular. Why is the movement circular? Because it uses arcs, right? It's got an arc. So it suggests it's moving like this. But like we said, this is a kind of yin-yang painting. And there's also kind of another movement going this way, maybe. Or some mixing of yin-yang elements in the painting. Okay, there is a static element in Hokusai's painting, Mount Fuji. It's static, it stays the same, it never changes. 8, the boat in Homer's work shows linear motion. It's going in one direction this way. Lines that seem to distort the motion in Popova's work are made by changing the colors or edges of shapes. So, what does that mean? Lines that seem to distort. Distort means to deform or break up something. The motion in Popova's work are made by changing the colors or edges of shapes. So one way that this painting seems to distort or break up movement is by using lines, right? But also where the line cuts through the shape, she uses different colors. So here's brown and here's yellow, right? This line cuts through here. There's green and blue, right? Blue and brown. Okay. So not only does she use lines to break up the movement, but also color, right? Okay, 10, we say a scene is captured in a photograph. So, you know, we captured a selfie, or usually we would just say took, right? Took something. All right, so we're done with the book. I want to show you guys a couple of more paintings that deal with movement, and maybe ask you to tell me a little bit about what you think. This is another painting by the same artist, Popova. Okay, Popova is the one who did this painting, right? So here's another one by Popova. It's called The Pianist. A pianist is someone who plays the piano, right? It's from 1915. Okay, again, you need to think about what was happening in history during this time period. 1915 was right in the middle of World War I. And as we said before, World War I basically like broke up the world, right? Everything is chaos. It's broken. So this painting is also kind of broken and distorted and fragmented. Everything is kind of broken up. That's one of the distinguishing characteristics. That's one of the ways that you can tell that a painting is cubist. Okay, cubist. Why is this a cubist painting? Well, why is this a cubist painting? Right, this is a cube, right? Not drawn very well, but it's a cube. You can see in this painting a hand that usually looks very round and smooth turns into a kind of cube with very straight lines, right? Or the face. The face is kind of broken up into cubes. So Cubism takes something that's usually very smooth and round and kind of turns it into straight lines. That's one of the things that it does. Another thing that Cubism does is it tries to show you many different perspectives on one thing at the same time. Many different perspectives on one thing at the same time. What does that mean? Well, we see this guy's lips and his beard, and we see the side of his nose. But we also see his nose from another side, over here, right? And we see his ear. We see the side of his eye, and then we see him looking directly at us. Right? So, in other words, we kind of see his face from different angles, right? All in the same place. So, looking at his ear from this side, looking at his eye from this side, looking at his eye from this side, and it's all put together into one place. Same thing with his hands. This is his hand playing the piano, right? But if you're standing like this playing the piano, my face would be looking this way, right? But his face is looking this way. So, in other words, it's kind of showing you different parts of one thing and putting it all together into one. Does that make sense? What does that have to do with movement? What does that have to do with movement? Imagine you are at a concert and you're watching someone play piano, right? You're going to see the person from different angles as they move. So, you know, they're going to be playing piano, you're going to see their arm go up and down. Maybe they look to the side or move their head. You're going to be seeing them from different angles, different perspectives. So this kind of suggests the person moving around and doing different things, right? In one still place. The canvas. The canvas doesn't move. So how does it show movement? One way that it can show movement is to use things like arcs or spray from the water, right? Those things give us a sense of movement. But so does cubism. Cubism is another way of showing movement because it gives us many different perspectives at the same time, right? Same thing with this. This is kind of another example of cubism. It's another famous, very famous painting. It's called Nude Descending a Staircase Number 2. Okay, nude means having no clothes on, right? Having no clothes on. Descending a staircase. So here, this is a painting of someone with no clothes walking down the stairs from 1912, okay, around the same time period. Now, how does this one show movement? It shows movement in the same way that this one does, right? Because it shows one person in different positions as they are walking down the stairs, right? Different perspectives of the same person moving. First they're up here, and then they move down a little bit more. Their leg is moving back and forth, right? Walking down the stairs. Also, you can see this is cubist because it's very blocky and sharp lines. Okay. Now, can you think of anything else that a different kind of technology that does the same thing as this to create the illusion of movement? So another technology that doesn't move, but that creates the illusion of movement by showing you the same thing from different perspectives. You probably use this technology a lot, all the time. Whenever you watch television, whenever you watch a movie, originally, the way that movies developed, and by the way, they developed at the same time period. Okay, so while Marcel Duchamp was doing this painting, motion pictures were emerging, okay? They started to emerge in the late 19th century and they kind of developed over the next couple of decades. How do motion pictures work? They take a picture and then they take a picture like 1 second later of the same thing, and then they take another picture, and then another picture, and then another picture, right? And then if you play those pictures right after each other in succession, it looks like someone's moving, right? That's how original pictures work. Now it's all digital. It's all digital. They don't use individual photos taken together. But Marcel Duchamp is doing just what motion pictures we're doing around the same time, showing you different parts moving together simultaneously. Good. Okay. Simultaneous means at the same time. So at the same time, we get to see many, many different perspectives. At the same time, simultaneously, many different perspectives. Okay. Same time period, 1912. Dynamism of a dog on a leash. Okay. Dynamism of a dog on a leash. Dynamism means movement. Okay, movement. Why is this one not cubism? Do you think? Why is this painting not an example of cubism? Because there's no sharp lines, right? There's no sharp lines. But how is this painting similar to this painting? What's happening in this painting? And how does it show the dynamism of a dog walking? I'm going to put you guys into groups, and I'm going to come around to those groups, and I'm going to ask you that question, and I want you to tell me the answer to that question in your own words. Okay? All right, I'm going to give you a number. You guys have been sitting very quietly in the same place, very statically. You're very static. So I'm going to get some movement and dynamism in the room by assigning you to a group. 1 through 5. Okay? 1. Someone tell him he's 2. 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. So find your group, say hello. All right, so I'm going to give you a few minutes just to chat with each other. But again, my question is, I'm going to come up to your group, and I might ask you a couple of different questions. I might ask you, describe the painting to me. Okay, which is something that I often ask you to do. So, describe in your own words the painting. Okay, I don't want you to look on your smartphone for a Wikipedia description of the painting. I want you guys to tell me in your own words, maybe using some of the vocabulary that we've learned about this painting. Describe it for me. And then I might also ask you, how does this painting show movement? Give me some details. Give me some details about how this painting shows movement. I might ask you, is this painting chaotic? Is this painting chaotic? Why? Why do you think it's chaotic, or why not? So those are some of the questions. I might ask you a different question. I might ask you what your favorite color is. Maybe you'll get lucky and get a really easy question. Okay, but I might ask you any number of questions. I'll be coming around in a minute to see what you think, okay?